Look, man, I'd be sitting up here lying if I told you I was a big fan of Hugh Freeze, because I'm not. Is he a shady person? I don't know. Y'all can debate that in the comments, but here's what I do know. The man knows how to coach. He knows how to beat Alabama. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are entering one of my favorite times of the year, and that is no other than March Madness. I'm a very simple man. I don't like to go to the clubs, I don't like to party, I don't like to do this or do that. I like to watch sports and work out. And yes, there's some other things I like to do here and there, but those two things, they consume most of my days. With that being said, since it is March and we're gearing up, getting ready for March Madness, that led me to think about, hey, that means spring football is also coming up. Then when I thought about spring football, that led me to think about, hey, I wonder how the new head coaches are going to do this year. Because we got some notable names and faces at new places. We got Deion Sanders, he's at Colorado. We got Matt Rhule, he's at Nebraska, and also Hugh Freeze at Auburn. There's also a lot of questions surrounding these guys because about half people believe in them and the other half don't. Deion Sanders is inheriting a piss poor and pathetic program. Matt Rhule, he's in the same situation. And Hugh Freeze, he's inheriting Auburn, which isn't a bad program, but they've been playing bad recently. But, and I have a big but, what makes all this even more interesting, probably 10 times more fascinating than you could ever imagine, is all three of these guys are expected to win right away. And I would understand it a tad bit more if they were inheriting a team that went 7-5 or 8-4, but these teams didn't even do that. So in today's video, it's rather simple. We're going to talk about how many wins each of these new college football coaches are going to get. And before you run to the comments and say something, I want you to watch this video all the way through and hear me out. And at the end of it, let me know your thoughts. Because I am very curious. There's going to be a lot of mixed feelings and emotions, and that's what it's all about. All right, Matt, blah, 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 shut the crap up. Now, without further ado, let's get into it. We ain't wasting no time whatsoever. I say we start off with Matt Rhule at Nebraska. To give you some context, dating back to 2017, Nebraska has went 4-8, 4-8, 5-7, 3-5, 3-9, and a miserable 4-8 in 2022. The funniest part about all of this is Nebraska fans each and every single year thought they were going to win 9 or 10 games. To go on top of that, nobody has been more right about this Nebraska football program the past 3 years than me, myself, and I. Does that sound a little arrogant or cocky? I guess it does. I don't really want to come off that way, but I have been right. Nebraska fans were trying to tell me last year heading into 2022, Matt, this is the year we turn it around. This is where we do this, blah, 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 blah. This is where Scott Frost finally, he gets it into gear. Yada, 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 straight up nonsense. You know how it goes if you've ever spoken or heard a Nebraska fan talk. And let me say this, I have the utmost respect for Nebraska fans because they show up and sell out every single game knowing their team is trash. That's what I respect about them, but I don't respect them being delusional. A lot of people in this life, they have wishful thinking. It's the same thing whenever you start dating a girl. You want to believe she's this 10 out of 10 that has no flaws whatsoever and she's never going to backstab you, but in reality, sometimes it's going to happen. In reality, the girl you're talking to isn't a 10 out of 10. In reality, she has her flaws and imperfections. In reality, your girl on a scale of 1 to 10 isn't an 8, isn't a 9. She's probably a 4 or 5. But since you're dating her, you have this wishful thinking of, hey, she's the best thing since sliced bread. You see what I'm saying? That's the same thing with Nebraska football fans. Nebraska football fans have watched their team be terrible, and yet they go into the next season thinking, hey, we're going to turn it around. It's the same thing if you allow your cheating ex to come back into your life. You saw your ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend cheat on you, but yet you're like, I'm going to overlook it. That's the best analogy I can use for Nebraska football fans. You're delusional. You watch your team go 4-8, 5-7 every single year and improve nothing in the offseason and think you're going to go 10-2. It's not going to happen. You know what the definition of insane is, right? Doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting a different result. But and I have a big but, Nebraska has finally changed something. They got a new head coach. And he goes by the name of Matt Rhule, and let me start off by saying this. I like this guy 10 times better than Scott Frost. And I'm wrong on a lot of aspects when it comes to talking about college football, but the one thing I've always been right on is head coaches. I've always had a good feel for them. I can call them out when I think they're going to be really good, and I can also call them out when I think they're going to be really bad. And I don't think I'm some mystical foreign creature that can see into the future. I just think it's common sense. Same thing I tried telling Auburn fans 3 years ago. Brian Harsin isn't SEC material. Nobody wanted to listen to me though. All people said is, oh Matt, you gotta give him a chance. No, I don't gotta give him a chance. An ace is an ace and a spade is a spade. If Brian Harsin is a mediocre head coach, that's it. That's all there is to it. There is no reason for me to sit up here and try to convince people, yeah, I think he's gonna win 10 games a year at Auburn, because I knew that wasn't gonna happen. I knew from the jump he was mediocre. A spade is a spade, an ace is an ace. I think you get my point. Getting back on track here with Matt Rhule at Nebraska, let's take a look at the schedule. If I'm a Nebraska fan, this is what excites me the most. Week 1, you got Minnesota, trash. Colorado, trash. Northern Illinois, trash. Louisiana Tech, trash. Michigan, they're good. You get Illinois. I'll give them average. You got Northwestern, trash. Purdue, trash. Michigan State, trash. Maryland, trash. Wisconsin, at best, average. And Iowa, trash. When it comes to one of the easiest schedules out there, look no farther than Nebraska's. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the benefit of being in the cupcake and sorry and trash Big Ten. The Big Ten is flat out awful outside of Ohio State and Michigan. And if you think otherwise, I don't know what to tell you. You just don't know sports. This conference sucks, but here's where things get a little controversial. So does Nebraska. As much as I like Matt Rule, I think he will eventually turn things around and get Nebraska to a 9-10 win team, maybe to a level where they can compete with Ohio State, compete with Michigan. They're not going to get there next year. I know Nebraska fans, you're ready to win, and I get it, trust me, but next year you're going to have some growing pains. You're rebuilding. It's a first-year head coach inheriting a terrible program. I'm going to say week 1 against Minnesota, although I don't really think Minnesota is that great of a team. Nebraska somehow, someway is going to mess it up. They're starting out the season 0-1. Not the greatest start ever. However, you're matching up with the 1-11 Colorado Buffaloes the next week. I believe they call themselves the Buffs for short. You got the matchup of the new head coaches, and I'm going to give the edge to Nebraska. I say Matt Rule gets the better of Deion Sanders, and now they're 1-1. And let's fast forward these two. You got Northern Illinois. You should beat them. Hopefully you beat them. I'd take Nebraska to win. Now you're 2-1. You see, now you got some momentum, because then you got Louisiana Tech, a game in which you should win. I'm going to say they win it. You're 3-1. Now, would I be shocked if they lost to Louisiana Tech? Absolutely not, but I think they win it. Well, then you got Michigan. I'm going to keep this one short and simple. There's no shot. Not even a single chance in the dark you're going to win this game. You're not physical enough. Michigan is as physical as it gets. I have a hard time believing Nebraska's going to score on Michigan, and I have a hard time believing that they can even stop Michigan's run game. So now you're 3-2, and this is where things can get a little dicey. You got Illinois, which is a solid ball club. I like what Brett Bielema's doing there, and they was about a hair away from upsetting Michigan. This is probably one of your more pivotal games throughout the season, because if you lose this one, now you're sitting at 3-3, season's over, all the players are probably going to give up. But if you win it, you're sitting at 4-2, which ain't bad. When you're in the locker room as a player and you're sitting there 4-2, you're feeling good. You're like, hey, we got a solid winning record. But when you're sitting 3-3, it's a little demotivating. I think Nebraska's going to come close to winning this game, but I say they screw it up in the end. Now they're 3-3. Then the next game, you're playing one of the worst teams in the country, Northwestern. But hey, Nebraska lost to them last year. I say they get their revenge. You're sitting at 4-3. Then you got Purdue. I say you beat Purdue. Now you're on a 2-game win streak. You're 5-3 in another pivotal matchup with Michigan State. Michigan State and Mel Tucker is the most overrated team and program in the entire country. But I say Michigan State, they get it done. Now Nebraska's 5-4. At this point in time, I mean, you're not really doing bad. You're 5-4. Yeah, you lost 4 games, but you got 5 wins. You're heading into Maryland, or the Maryland game, my bad. I think Nebraska pulls it out. You're 6-4 and you got 2 games left. Wisconsin and Iowa. Well, here's where things get really dicey. You win these next 2 games, you're 8-4. You're feeling pretty good. Remember Wisconsin, they also got a new head coach in Luke Fickell. I'm going to say Nebraska, this is going to be their signature win. They upset Wisconsin. 7-4, that's awesome. We got Iowa at home. But I'm going to say, coming off of that big time win, they have a letdown. They finished the year 7-5, losing to Iowa at home. And I think that's the most Nebraska thing ever. Losing a game you probably should have won. So I'm giving Matt Rule Nebraska 7-5. And I know a lot of you are sitting there saying, well, Matt, that's pretty dang good. And no, it isn't. Let me explain. 7-5 for this schedule isn't good. It's average or below average. If Nebraska was in the SEC, more than likely I'm saying they go 3-9 or 4-8. But since you're in the sorry Big Ten, I'm giving you 7-5. I think that's more unfair. And the reason I'm giving them 7-5 in the edge in some of these games, it's because I do believe in Matt Rule. And also I want to throw this in there before we get a move on. I enjoy watching Nebraska football games because it's funny to see their fans get disappointed. Nothing gives me more joy in this life than to watch Nebraska fans try to hype up a big time matchup at 11 a.m. and lose to a team they should have beat by 20. There's just nothing better than that, man, I swear. Let's get a move on to our next head coach, though, and that is no other than the man, the myth, the legend himself, the most controversial. I wouldn't call him controversial, but some people like him, some people don't. Coach Primetime. Oh, man, this one's, interesting. You know what? I'm not going to hype it up. Let's just get straight into it. First game of the year. They got to play a team that went to the national championship game in TCU. Look, let's keep this one short and sweet. Colorado, they shouldn't beat TCU, and I wouldn't pick them to beat TCU, so I'm giving TCU the edge. Do I trust TCU to win this game? I don't know. It's more so of I don't believe in Colorado. The thing with Deion Sanders is, and I've harped on this enough, we'll talk about this leading up to the season. We're still just we're not even in the middle of the offseason. We're at the beginning stages of the offseason. Deion Sanders, yes, I believe in him 100%. Oh, man, you got to believe me when I say this. He's inheriting a terrible football team. You can't turn around a team that went 1-11 within 2 years. It's going to take 3 or 4 years. I do believe he's going to win more than one game, but I don't think he's going to win 8, 9, or 10. TCU, better program, got better athletes, better talent. TCU's winning this one. I don't think it's going to be too close. I hope it's an entertaining game because I know the media is going to hype it up, but I don't think it's going to be that close. And I also believe College Game Day will be there. So they're starting out the season 0-1, but not too big of a deal. TCU, really solid team. Next week, though, we got Nebraska. I already spoke on this. I said Nebraska's winning this game. So now Colorado's sitting 0-2. Not pretty. The reason I got Nebraska winning is because they got slightly better talented athletes. It's not so much that one team's better than the other. It's more so of one team's not as bad as the other, if that makes sense. So at this point in time, Colorado's sitting at 0-2. And yeah, it doesn't look good, but when you look at the grand scheme of things, it's not too bad. You played two decent opponents. I would consider TCU a good opponent and Nebraska a below average opponent. So when you combine them, I'm giving them decent. Then in the following week, you got Colorado State at home. I'm going to say Colorado, they pick up the momentum, they win. Now they're sitting at 1-2. Not too bad, but you got a rough, and I mean a rough 2-game stretch. You got to go to Oregon and you got USC. Let's not overcomplicate this, guys. They're not beating Oregon. Bo Nix, he's coming back. Oregon's going to run them out of the gym, or not gym, it's not basketball, but run them out of the stadium. And then you got to play Caleb Williams. Yeah, that's just a rough 2-game stretch. Now you're sitting at 1-4. But then things calm down a little bit. You got Arizona State, who ain't too great, and you also got Stanford. These aren't powerhouses whatsoever. I think you can beat both of these teams, but I'm going to say Colorado splits the matchup. They beat Arizona State, but they lose to Stanford at home. So when you beat Arizona State, you're now sitting at 2-4, but you lose to Stanford, 2-5. Then you got to go to UCLA. I say UCLA, they get the job done at home. Now Colorado is 2-6. You got Oregon State at home. I want to pick Colorado, but I'm taking Oregon State, 2-7. You're 2-7 with 3 games left. Not looking good. You got Arizona left, Washington State, and Utah. I have a hard time saying this. It's close, but I think Colorado, they're going to win a game they shouldn't win, and that's going to be against Arizona. Now they're sitting at 3-7. They beat Arizona. That's good, but I think they lose to Washington State, 3-8. And the last game of the year, you got a tough one. I don't think you win this one. You got to play Utah. You finish the year 3-9. I know Colorado fans, you're not happy with that, but it's the reality. And I do want to say this. If Colorado had Nebraska's schedule, I would say, hey, they're going 6-6. This has nothing to do with I believe in Nebraska more than Colorado. It has more to do with the schedule's harder. Trust me, nobody has ragged and joked and disrespected the Pac-12 more than me the past 3 years. But I'm telling you, the Pac-12, they ain't so bad. I can't even believe we got to this point, but they're no longer the worst Power 5 conference. That's definitely the ACC. And I'm also going to say the Pac-12 is better as an entire conference than the Big Ten. The Big Ten just got Michigan and Ohio State. The Pac-12's got a lot of decent teams. So to my Colorado fans, don't get too down in the dumps with me saying you're going 3-9. I don't think this year is so much about wins and losses. It's about improving. Let me give you an example. Do you want to invest $10 into a stock and sell it for $20 next year, or do you want to invest $10 and sell it for $100 in 5 years? You see what I'm saying? I think Nebraska, that's a short-term stock where you can flip 10 into 20 in a year or two. But I think Colorado, that's a long-term investment where you can flip $10 into $100 if you wait it out. To my Colorado fans, this is going to be a long process, but if you stay true to your team, you're going to reap some benefits in the long run. Last but not least, though, I saved the best for last. Let's talk about Hugh Freeze at Auburn. Look, man, I'd be sitting up here lying if I told you I was a big fan of Hugh Freeze, because I'm not. Is he a shady person? I don't know. Y'all can debate that in the comments, but here's what I do know. The man knows how to coach. He knows how to beat Alabama. He beat Alabama and Nick Saban in his prime in back-to-back seasons. One of those years, Alabama won the title. And he beat them with an Ole Miss team that wasn't necessarily that great. Ole Miss could never recruit on the level of Alabama, but guess what? Auburn can, or maybe not can, but they can get close. You're never going to see Ole Miss with a top 10 recruiting class, but you will see Auburn with one. That's my point with this. You got to give Hugh Freeze some time, but If you're an Auburn fan from the SEC, you know this. Auburn fans, they're very, and I mean very impatient. A large reason for that is because they got a team only a couple hundred miles away from them winning titles and competing for titles every single season. And I'm talking about Alabama. They also got another team that's a couple hundred miles away that goes by the name of Georgia that's doing the same thing. So Auburn fans, they're not exactly patient. They want to win now, and that's just not how things work. Regardless of that, let's talk about their schedule. They open up with a cupcake, nice little warm-up game against UMass. I'm going to say they win, starting out 1-0, not too bad. Then you got a very fascinating one that I didn't even know they had on the schedule. You got California. That one's interesting. California, similar to Auburn, didn't even make it to a bowl game last year. I'm going to give Auburn the edge. California ain't no serious threat. And then you got Sanford. You're starting out the year 3-0, not too bad. You couldn't get off to a better start, but you're not really playing competition. Regardless of that, though, you're 3-0. But then you got the big-time, prime-time matchup with O&M. Or, as most people like to call them, Texas ATM. Because we all know they paid their players, but that's a different conversation for a different day. Oh, brother. You want to talk about the battle of the mid. That's what this game is. If you don't know what mid means, it means average. Shoot, man, that's an interesting game. You know what? I'm going to give Ojimbo the edge in this one. I say they get the job done. Auburn is now 3-1. And this is a rough 3-game stretch because after that, you got to play Georgia. Look, you're not beating Georgia. I don't care. We're not arguing. Now you're 3-2. But then you got to go to Death Valley and play Brian Kelly in his second year. Do I call the upsets? It ain't gonna happen. I got a little, yeah. I got a little belief in Brian Kelly. I'm saying now Auburn's sitting at 3-3. So you start out the year on a 3-game win streak, but now you're on a 3-game losing streak in the SEC. Not looking good whatsoever. I am gonna say you beat old Lane Kiffin, whatever you want to call him. Now you're sitting at 4-3, and then you got Mississippi State. I say you continue the momentum. You're 5-3, and then we got good old Vandy. You know what? I don't know if we can continue to rag on Vandy because they beat Florida last year. They finished 5-7. They're still the worst team in the SEC. I think they're going to give Auburn a run for their money, but I see Auburn wins this game. Now you're 6-3. So you start out 3-game win streak, 3-game losing streak. Now you're back on the 3-game win streak. 6-3, not bad. Then you got a really interesting one because this is where things could get a little dicey. If you win this game, you're going to have a lot of momentum, but if you lose it, it's like, okay, season over. You got Arkansas. Arkansas fans are not going to like this one, but I think Auburn gets the job done, and now they're 7-3. You got New Mexico State, Cupcake 8-3. Then you got the Iron Bowl. Auburn's going into it 8-3. Not bad. If Auburn's 8-3, they're probably going to be ranked at this point. Now, here's the biggest questions. Can you win the Iron Bowl? I don't know, but here's what I do know. It's in Jordan-Hare Stadium, and we all know what goes down there. As an Alabama fan myself, I tell you straight up, that is an environment every time I watch on TV or whenever I was there. It's just not, there's something about it, this aura. You can feel it through the TV that some crazy BS plays are going to happen. But I don't see that happening next year. Auburn, you're not winning the Iron Bowl. You're just simply not. You finished the year 8-4, though. That's not bad at all. Why have I said not bad at all like 5 times in the last couple of minutes? I have no idea. Now I know what a lot of you are sitting there saying. Well, Matt, 8-4 is pretty good for Hugh Freeze in his first year. And yeah, it is. And the reason I got Auburn going 8-4 is for 2 simple reasons. Number one, they already have the talent. They just ain't had coaching. And number 2 is, and it goes hand in hand with number 1, now they got a good coach. Say what you want about Hugh Freeze, but the man knows how to coach. Period. The end. There it is, though. That's how I think these coaches are going to do. Let me know your thoughts down below. But, roll